Most men will never die from a heart attack. They'll die from comfort, from silence, from pretending they're fine when they're not. We live in a world where men are taught to grind, produce, perform, provide, but never taught how to feel, heal, or rebuild when they're breaking. You can have the money, you can have the body, you can have the fame, and still be empty as hell inside. So today is not about abs. It's not about clout, not about algorithms or followers. It's about the man staring back at you in the mirror when the lights go out. It's about the conversations you avoid, the pain you bury, the strength you pretend you still have. Because real power is not how hard you flex in public. Real power is how honest you get in private. And it is this conversation that might make you uncomfortable. And that's exactly why you need it. Let's talk about what no one wants to talk about. Focus on hitting your goals in every area of your business. Remember, the universe rewards the bold. A leader has to take the risks.
What's up, Daniel?
The great Ted. What's up, dude? How you doing, man?
Doing well. It's the day before travel, so I'm in Brazil right now, heading to Miami for a couple days, and then to see my family in San Antonio, Texas after.
Well, that's fantastic, man. How's so what are you doing in Brazil?
No idea.
Oh, come on. You gotta how did you get to Brazil? What happened?
Well, I've been living outside the country since 2018, so it's not unusual for me to be in different countries. But why Brazil? I had a plan. I love the country. I've spent probably over 2 years, well, now 3 years, probably closer to 3 years in total. And I moved here with the objective of getting my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I thought it would take a year to accomplish that. It took 5 months. So then I was like, well, I'm going to ride out the rest of my visa. And I really like Brazil a lot. Where are you based out of, Daniel?
Southern California.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. See the
And
palm trees in the background.
yeah, and so okay, so you're in Brazil, and then you just decide to stay there. So like, what do you do all day? Like, what's your daily life look like? I mean, in Brazil, I mean, after you got your black belt, you're like, okay, cool, man. So now what do I do?
Well, I bounced around a little bit. I originally ended up in Florianopolis, Brazil, which is in the south of Brazil. And I was there for 6 months. It's an incredible place during the summer. And then I went through carnival there, and then it turned into winter, started raining, getting dark. And I'm from Miami. I can't handle that. I started getting like, I don't want to call it depression because it was purely environmental. So I moved to a different city that had more sun, and then I was fine, right? But it was cold, dark, and rainy. And I'm like, I don't know how people live through that. Anyway, so I've been bouncing around. So my schedule has changed depending on the city that I've been in. But more recently, I've been in the capital of Brazil called Brasilia. It's a little boring. Don't recommend you come here.
I've
But
been there
I'm on the
actually.
lake.
I've
Oh, you've
actually been
been?
there. Yeah, I went to the
Interesting.
world. I was at the World Cup when they had the World Cup, however many years that was, and I watched Rio's games, and then I went to Brasilia for the stadium. So
Cool. Yeah, a beautiful stadium here. But yeah, so I go food shopping. I have a few cafes that I like to go to. They're really nice outside,
how often do you
lots of
train?
green.
How often do you train? Like, I mean, I'm sure you work out pretty consistently, but I mean, like doing your jujitsu and things like that. Like, how much time does that take a week?
Jiu-jitsu now for me, I've been doing it for a long time. So, and my goals are very different than when I started. I only do 2 times a week. And I think I'm 48. So if you're looking for longevity, jiu-jitsu and combat sports, They're great for a lot of other things, but longevity is not one of them,
Oh,
right?
really? Why?
Uh,
Why would you say that? Because I
well,
thought you were going to say the opposite.
well, it's probably great for your mind. You're learning things constantly. You get into a flow state easily when you learn the moves, when you get to a certain level at least. And it's an amazing thing, but you're going to get injured. Most
Oh,
common
gotcha.
injuries are finger injuries. So there's a lot, I know a lot of doctors that, backed off on jujitsu because they're like surgeons. Um, so you have to be careful with your hands, depending on what you do. And depending on your level of self-control, how easily you tap, right? And that type of thing. Like, you can end up with a lot of injuries. You can also just overdo it, because any sport, it's going to place it's going to be, it's more random. When you're in the gym, you're doing even like a lateral lunge or a squat or a deadlift, bench press, overhead press, even a wood chop where you're rotating, right? A cable wood chop. It's all very controlled. But when you're rolling with someone, which is, right, that's the word for sparring in jujitsu, you don't control the forces that happen. They just kind of happen. And that's the same with most sports, right? Like, playing soccer, talking about the
Right.
World Cup.
Right.
Which direction are you going to go in? You don't know because it has to do with the other guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
For sure. Yeah. My
you need to
daughter, I
be,
mean, she got incredible, big time injured playing soccer, and she no longer plays anymore. It messed her up so bad. So yeah, I mean, come on, let's be honest. Any sport, working out. I mean, my shoulders are toast right now. I'm going to be working on some stuff. Matter of fact, I probably should talk to you. You'd probably give me some decent advice, but just the wear and tear, just after years and years of playing golf and lifting weights and, a million push-ups and all that kind of stuff, it's just the wear and tear of your body. And so, but we're going to talk health and wealth today. And I know that you've trained like celebrities and Robert Downey Jr. and Richard Branson and Ricky Martin, I think. I mean, I don't know how that happened,
yep.
but we're going to talk about all that stuff today. But the first question I have, though, for you is, when did you finally realize that you were the problem, man?
When that I was
When
the
did, yeah,
problem,
you were the problem and it wasn't the world, man.
I would say, when I read How to Win Friends and Influence People, because I thought like, oh, like, people are weird, like, it's hard to connect with them, and then I realized that I had to be more of a leader. I had to learn better communication skills, and so I would say probably then. It was
I,
when I was like, you know what? There's a skill to getting ahead in life and to achieving success in life. And most of it, I mean, depending on what you do, of course, right? Maybe if you're a coder or something like that, you don't deal with people. But even if you in relationships, it has to do with like, developing self-awareness, understanding communication, right? So that's what I would say, early 20s or
I think
mid
it's so
20s.
I think it's so cool that that you said that because I remember. Well, by the way, How to Win Friends and Influence People was the first book I ever read in like real book that I ever read in my life, and it was actually I think I was probably like 20 or 21 years old, just started in business, and they recommended How to Win Friends and Influence People and Think and Grow Rich, and I read, and I just remember thinking to myself, holy shit, they should be teaching this in school. Like, why are they not teaching this to young kids? This should be a man. I mean,
Mm.
they're telling us to read Moby Dick in high school. Why is it not mandatory that you read How to Win Friends and Influence People? I could have gotten so many less fights, so many less arguments, so many less challenges as a young man. Oh my God. That book changed my life in a dramatic way.
Yeah, same. It wasn't the first book that I read, but it was the first self-help book that I read. And I was like, oh, you can learn this. Because I
Yeah.
was reading stuff on health and fitness before and really nerding out and taking courses and doing all this stuff. But then I was like, there's this whole other thing. And I agree with you, right? We need to learn how to, we need self-awareness, we need emotional regulation skills, right? How to calm ourselves down when you're upset, right? And then, how to not take things personally. I mean, I'm from Miami. I don't know how it is there. I've been to California a few times, San Diego a couple times, but yeah, there's a lot of people on the road, at least there used to be in Miami, just we're famous for road rage. And it doesn't have to do with you. I used to get really angry on the road. And now when that happens to me, I'm like, oh, that person's in a bad mood. Let me just try to kind of back away, right? So
I
you
think
just
it's
kind of let them do their thing, you
I
know?
think it's cool that you say that because you're like a badass black belt in jujitsu, kick anybody's ass, right? And you're like the last guy that wants to get in a fight. And I think that it says a lot, and I think that's what's cool about martial arts, and I think that's what I admire and respect about martial arts is that when you meet somebody that really could fuck you up, like could really like hurt you badly. I mean, there's things that about the human body that you could, really, put somebody down very, very quickly. And you're the last person that wants to get in a fight. And can you explain that? Like how, that's, I think everybody should learn martial arts and learn that type of, at least the mindset of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's important for women too, but for a different reason, right? To actually, because women, right, more likely to get into, right? They'll actually need the skills of self-defense. But guys, most of what we deal with is what a friend of mine, Tim Larkin, calls social violence, meaning like or I'm sorry, anti-social violence, right? Meaning like someone's angry. Why'd you step on my foot, bro? Like, why'd you spill your drink on me, right? Like stuff like that. Because he says asocial violence, like it's like when you're at an ATM and someone hits you on the head from behind with a lead pipe, right? Like that's not to go off too much on a tangent there, but when someone's a criminal, it's a whole different level. So guys get into this situation where it's kind of an ego insecurity thing. So why do guys who do martial arts? So first of all, thank you, Daniel. I can hold my own. I'm reasonably tough, and yeah, I worked hard to get my black belt. But a couple of things. One is anyone who goes into, let's say, martial arts, like a martial art like Muay Thai or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you get your butt kicked all the time. There's nobody that shows up on day one and they just, oh, I just beat everybody. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. The only people who do that have like, okay, a D1 wrestler, like a high level wrestler gets into a jujitsu class and does well, but because he's had his butt beat in wrestling, right? And so you also realize like again I'm reasonably tough. I can hold my own if some guys started with something with me on the street, but man, there's guys who all they do is they train for hours a day and they don't look like the toughest guys. Sometimes they'll have the cauliflower ear, sometimes they don't. I don't have much. I have my ears trained a couple times when I was just starting and never had a problem with it again. But there's a lot of tough guys out there, and probably if they're we I think this is a really interesting point because I have a professional bodyguard friend. He was a badass. I met him in jujitsu, but he got much bigger because the deterrent is the look, right? You see a big guy, you're like, I don't want to mess with that guy. That guy is probably, but there's a lot of guys now who are extremely skilled. They don't look like the typical sort of bodybuilding guy that you would see in the gym who's very muscle bound. These guys look like they're in shape. But I remember people in Miami like hitting me, and when I was a purple belt, I was on the thinner side. I'm like just bumping into me, just like kind of rude behavior because that's quite common in Miami, or at least it was. I
Mhm.
was just like, I'm just gonna let that go, man. But like, I was competing a lot during that time, and even wanted to do an MMA fight. And it's like you have to be careful who you're
Right.
messing with,
Well,
but
these
you get your
days you
butt
don't
beat.
know, and you don't know
Right.
who has a knife. You don't know who has a
That's the other
gun.
side.
I mean, I don't care.
Yeah,
You could be 50th degree black belt, and they shoot you, you're still gonna die. So I mean,
exactly.
it's a weird world that we live in. Uh, it's a totally different, crazy world that we live in. And I'll tell you another thing. I mean, when you start making money, it also puts you in a different perspective because people will sue.
Got something to lose. Oh,
Yeah.
that too,
I
right?
look.
Yeah.
I've been in 2 or 3 situations where I have been harassed and been provoked, and I know why they were doing it. I know that they wanted to see if they could get me to respond, and because they know that I have a little bit of money. And so yeah, you gotta look. This is a different world, man. It's not like the 1950s or 60s or 70s where you just get in a bar fight and everybody goes their separate way. It's a scary world, man. What broke you so bad that you had no choice, that you had to rebuild, man, in your life?
Lost you there. You were saying
Like
you
what
have
what broke you,
people will
man?
sue you.
Yeah, I was just talking about, but that's okay. What broke you so bad that you had no choice, you had to rebuild?
Well, I don't know how much you know about my story or want to get into it, but
Yeah, we want
my
to get into all of
9 year old,
it, man. All of it.
okay. Well, my 9 year old brother was kidnapped and murdered when I was 19. And so when you talk about rebuilding, that time in my life, I've had to rebuild myself several times, but that was, when you're talking about something that broke me so bad that I had to rebuild, it would be that. And it was major news in Miami. If you were alive in Miami or living in Miami that during that time, you would know my brother's name, Jimmy Ryce. It became big news locally. It made news nationally because, yeah, it was just one of those tough stories. Both my parents were attorneys. That type of thing wasn't supposed to happen to the parent type of parents or type of family that we had, but it happened. And so I ended up dropping out of school, and I wanted to study neuroscience. I had a whole plan, and you know, I had to. It broke me, and then I had to rebuild after that.
I mean, what happened, if you don't mind sharing the story? So, because a lot of people probably didn't hear about it. So,
Yeah, most people probably have not, unless again you're in Miami during that time. And there's been a lot of stories since, but my brother in 1995, actually on September 11th, was kidnapped walking home from his bus stop, just not even a mile away, like half a mile away. Um, yeah, was kidnapped uh, by a very deranged individual and you know sexually assaulted and murdered when my brother tried to get away. And yeah, it was a long story. He was executed 20 years later. Went to his execution with my dad,
wow.
and so yeah, that was basically the gist of it. But he was a very deranged individual, very sick in the head, as you might imagine.
And so, how'd you pull through on something like that? I mean, because there's a lot of people going through some crap in their life, maybe not to that degree, but what like how do you get through something like that? Because I mean, think about it. You're angry, you're feeling grief, you're feeling every emotion that you could imagine. What's the advice that you would give somebody maybe that have gone through something, again, maybe not that crazy, but something in their life?
Yeah, well, what I did and what I recommend were kind of different. I found my way into health and fitness, and I always say it saved my life. And I really believe that. I think I'd be dead if I hadn't found a way to turn things around with my physical health. And but yeah, I work with a lot of clients who are going through divorces or, business challenges or, all types of things. Or sometimes it's they sold their business and they're like, what do I do with my life? So even though that sounds like a very first world problem, it's still a problem, right? First world problems are still problems. So when I talk about my story, I never want to be like, wow, what I never want people to think is like, oh, well, you haven't been through anything because you haven't been through that. Because guess what? If I hadn't been through that, I would feel the same way about like my girlfriend breaking up with me or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And so so it's like our problems are our problems, but the way that we deal with them, I mean, when I was 19, I struggled big time, but eventually I came to believe like I don't know what I don't want the rest of my life to be horrible.
And
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 I had a
that's
big
what,
long life ahead of me.
yeah, I mean, and you had to make a decision right at that moment, right? Like, okay, I'm going to have a horrible rest of my life, or I'm going to get over this and try to make a great life. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's part of it. I think people like here's what I learned. One is stress is not something that happens inside your head, like, oh, I'm stressed, but it's no big deal. It's just stress. I just got to be tough. It's like, that's not being tough is great, but you got to understand the physiology behind it. For example, if we measured your blood pressure, it would be up. If we measured your heart rate variability, which is a metric of stress, it would be low. If we measured your resting heart rate, it would might be high. So there's all these. If we measured the amount of cortisol, your daily rhythm of cortisol, it would be high. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you're mentally tough and able to push through things, which is great. What you want is to address the physiology because that's kind of where the issues lie, right? You can tough it out for a little while, but eventually the physiology will crush you if it's not addressed, right? If you're not able to get back to baseline, and so that's a huge part of it. Another part is another part of it is just I would say psychological. For me, it gave me a purpose. Like I love helping people with their health now because everyone's struggling with something. Improving health always improves their life. Whether it doesn't matter where the problem is coming from, it's the thing if you're gonna like sometimes running a business, right? You can get something dialed in and then guess what? You get disrupted because AI comes around or whatever, right? Whatever the situation is. But if you do the right things with health and fitness, you will always get results. If you're in a calorie deficit, you're always going to lose fat. If you're using progressive overload with in the gym with resistance training, you're always going to build muscle. If you're doing cardiovascular exercise, you can always boost your VO2 max. Provided that you're doing the right things, you can always get results. And I think that's a very stabilizing thought and experience for people. Like, well, it's something I can always control, right? And then, of course, like turning your pain into purpose, like what I mentioned earlier. You don't necessarily have to help people who've been divorced. If you went through a bad divorce or something like that. And I don't help people who like members of my family went on to help people who've been through similar situations. That wasn't my path, right? My path was to help people with their health and fitness, and so a way to give back in some way? Could it be your business? Could it be a charity that you give to, or spending time with someone, like in terms of like mentorship or whatever? There's always a way to turn to show without sounding too woo, to kind of show the universe like, hey, I still have abundance here, right?
I love that. I love that, man. You work with a lot of people over, especially guys over 40, and you're trying to make a difference in their lives. And I think probably you see a lot of guys that get to 40 and maybe they haven't done all the things that they thought they were going to do, and maybe that's when depression starts coming around, and they start figuring out these hard truths about their life. I mean, you working with so many guys, and I mean, is there some hard truths that they start to figure out over 40 that you see as a common denominator?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And what I would say is this: the guys that I work with mostly executives, entrepreneurs, or high performing professionals like doctors, attorneys. So these are guys who set aside their health usually. Sometimes they've been exercising still, but they put on too much body fat, or maybe they've set aside their health altogether and they were an athlete before. And so you get to a place where you can't put off your health anymore. And the longer you do it, the more you start to realize, like, oh, I am on my way to a heart attack. For example, I had a client, now he has a genetic predisposition to heart disease, but he found out in his early 40s that he had blockages. After getting a CT scan, he found out that he had blockages in some of his major arteries. And it's like, you can't come back from that. You can go forward, you can start doing aerobic exercise, you can start to lose fat, but you can't undo the blockage, right? You might be able to affect it a little bit, but you can't get rid of it. So health isn't something you can just, oh, well, I let things go for a couple decades, but I'll just get in shape now. Yeah, you can get in shape. You still might have a heart attack though, right? Anyway, it doesn't
Why
matter.
why why do we
Or
see, like you hear these stories of guys that are like they're workout guys and they're always in the gym and they're eating right and they're doing all these things, and then they have a fucking heart attack. Like where does that come from, man?
I mean, I'm not a doctor, so and you would want to ask a cardiologist, but in my experience of dealing with people like that, you're not in good shape if you're right. You're not doing the right things. I think one of my pillars is like when I work with clients, we do a precision health assessment. So I want to know, what does your blood work look like? Because I feel like I hear guys say that, oh, I'm eating healthy, I'm doing this. It's like, well, why is your LDL cholesterol sky high and your apolipoprotein B? Why is that, in the hundreds? Why is your fasting glucose at 99? Yeah, your doctor said it's normal, but guess what? That's like saying I passed the class, but I was a D student, right? So,
Right.
so, or a guy's thinking like, oh, well, I work out, or whatever the story is. So you have to use the amazing thing about the time we're living in is we don't have to figure this stuff out. We have, if you grew up when I grew up, you just kind of like did your thing and then hope it worked out. But now we know a lot of we have a lot of information. Like, we know, what should your blood work look like? What where should you be in terms of your cardiovascular fitness? Do you really not have any heart disease? Go get a calcium score. And if you have a history of heart disease, get a CT angiogram. So that gives you your calcium score, and they do contrast to see if you have any narrowing of arteries, right? So if you have any blockages, because calcium scores, a lot of guys, so that's just a measurement of like how much hard plaque you have. You can come back with a zero, but you can still be at risk for having a heart attack if you have other risk factors. I had a client we didn't work together that long, but he was very large for his height, ton of fat, insulin resistance. I'm sorry, not resting, but fasting glucose was in the hundreds, right? And it's like, dude, you have a calcium score of zero, but you're heading like, we know that that's not the whole picture, right? Like go get a CT angiogram. And even if you are clear, you're still heading towards diabetes if you don't make a major move. And by the way, one thing about that, a lot of doctors will test your blood. They'll do a blood test and they'll say, hey, yeah, you're good. Or, hey, your sugar's a little high. And what we know now, if your fasting glucose is high and your hemoglobin A1C, which is a measurement of fasting glucose over like a 2 or 3 month period, you've had glucose regulation issues or insulin resistance, probably the term most people have heard, for around maybe even a decade before that shows up to be a problem. So yeah, you should change your health. You can change your health at any age. Your 70s, like we know you can put on muscle in your 70s, 80s, or even 90s, but it's better to start beforehand. You can't turn back the clock. You can't reverse some damage. A lot of it you can, but if it's too far gone, right, you're gonna be playing defense. Not the
Yeah,
worst thing in the world, but
yeah,
yeah.
I agree with you, man. I mean, I got a full on like 30 vials of blood test, full on, every metric, they checked everything. As a matter of fact, they even checked 50 different types of cancers. And I mean, I went through the whole deal. And I think my biological age today is 43, and I just turned 51. So I was pretty proud of that. But I've been paying attention to this stuff for a long time now. This has been a big part of my life. I mean, I'm not perfect for not even close, but I've really thought long and hard and got a C scan done. And the doctor said, just come back and see me in 7 years. I mean, just came out, really, really good. And but it's just funny because I don't know if I'm just messed up in my brain or I'm just got but I was doing abs this morning, and I felt like a weird thing in my heart or my back or something like that, and I'm like, man, is this it, is this the final, so I don't know if I do that to myself sometimes, but what you're saying, and I just hope that people that are listening right now, man, you got to take this thing seriously. I mean, look, if you're over 20, if you're over 30, you shouldn't wait until you're 40 or 50 years old to start thinking about this shit. I mean, there's so much that we know today. There's so much that we understand today. You need to take this seriously because it's going to catch up with you. And, a couple pounds here, a couple pounds there, a couple pounds here, there. Next thing you know, I mean, I don't know if I'm, some people say to do it, some people say don't do it, but I measure my weight every single day. And I know the range that I need to be in and what I want to be. And if I gain a couple of pounds, 2, 3 pounds, whatever, then I just, maybe fast for a couple of days. I lay off, just try to make sure I'm watching myself a little bit better. And I don't know, I don't know. Am I right or wrong, or what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I missed part of it. You said, what did you say about you were doing the what?
So what part did you miss?
The part where, sorry about that.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
I'm in
That's
a
all right.
hotel
That's all
right
right.
now.
That's all
And
right. It just cut out a little bit. So no,
Yeah,
I was talking. I mean, you heard me talk about my 30 vial of blood. I mean, I kind of went through
right.
everything, and I got fully tested on everything. And but I just think that people wait too long. In your
Yeah.
20s, you should be thinking about this stuff. Your 30s, your 40s, because I think because I've monitored myself, I weigh myself every day. I monitor myself every day, just quickly. I mean, I don't take much time. I mean, you get on the scale, it takes 5 seconds. And I just want to know that I'm being consistent. And as long, because I think, and I don't know if how this happens to people, but people will sometimes they'll be like, oh, I gained 20 pounds last year. Didn't didn't you figure it out when you gained 3 pounds or 5 pounds? Didn't you say, oh shit, when you got to 5 pounds? What if you got to 10 pounds? Didn't you say, oh shit? How did you get to, what happens? Why does that happen to people?
Yeah, it happens to high performing men because it becomes like they develop habits of crushing it at work. Health gets put on the back burner. And then if it wasn't, I have a client I'm thinking about right now, and he like was a ski instructor. He taught whitewater rafting, and he's got a really cool story. But for 2 decades, he just crushed work, crushed business, and he's he's an expert in his field, right? Without divulging personal information about him, he's an expert in his field. He's got a book. People seek him out, right? And he sought me out, and that was his story, he said. And he also, sometimes people have some other issues. A lot of it's belief too, Daniel. A belief that, oh, well, I hit 40. Oh, this is what happens because of age. And also, here's something even, let's go a level deeper, because the belief is one thing, but in the United States, maybe not where you're at in San Diego, or where I am in Miami, or where I was born, right? But for a lot of people, I remember a client telling me, he's like, we had our VIP retreat, and he told me, he's like, I've never been the fat guy in a group before, and I wouldn't call him a client fat, but he's got a lot of fat to lose, let's say, right? And so it's like, we're in, my point in bringing that up is it create, whoever we're hanging out with creates a standard for us. For example, I don't know about you, you probably have a similar situation. You're like, wow, I used to think $100,000 a year was a lot of money. And then I started hanging out with, I started my business and started hanging out with entrepreneurs, and they're making 100K a month. I'm like, oh, right. Like, so,
There's another
so
level, man.
a whole other level. And the issue with, and some guys make 1 million a month, right? And so, like, there's so many levels. And I think my point in bringing that up is, if we look around, everyone is so out of shape in the US. In fact, there was a little bit of a dip in obesity by a few percent. A lot of experts think it has to do with Ozempic and cultural shifts and, Maha and all the things that are happening. But most of us are out of shape. Most of us are overweight or obese, like 70% of the population. Only like 12, I think the statistic is something like only 12% of the population makes the cutoff for like being metabolically healthy, right? And so we're surrounded by poor health. And it creates a standard where you just think it's normal or okay, and normalizes it. I think it's even more important than the everybody talks about, like, the health at every size movement, or body positivity. I think the most important thing is, like, when you look around, what do you see? That becomes the normal thing for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
It's wild because, well, so many things get normalized, right? I mean, alcohol gets
mhm.
normalized. And I dated somebody for 3 years, and she didn't drink alcohol at all. And it changed my life, honestly. I mean, not that I was never an alcoholic. I never, was like a daily drinker or anything like that. I mean, I was always just like a social drinker. But I didn't drink for so long. And so now it's like, it's just normal for me. I just don't crave it. I just don't like, even if I'm out somewhere, I just don't drink. Maybe I'll have a glass of wine or something like that. But it's like, it just doesn't feel right to drink. And I'm just so glad that my lifestyle now is a lifestyle that doesn't really include alcohol so much. But it's a normal thing. I mean, I hang out with a bunch of drinkers, then you're going to drink. If you don't hang out with drinkers, you don't drink. And so I was dating this girl for 3 years, and she didn't drink. So I almost never drank during those 3 years. So it's wild. I mean, what do you think about alcohol and, the effects and all that you've seen?
Yeah, and more importantly than my thoughts about it, the research is really clear. I don't want to like this isn't conspiratorial, but we know like the red wine is healthy myth. A lot of that research was industry funded, but more importantly, a lot of people, like if you look at the research, it included people, a lot of people give up drinking because of health issues, right? But once you started looking at the data with that in mind, like all the benefits of drinking went away. So alcohol is a neurotoxic, it's poisonous. I drink, like you, I don't have like it's not something I do regularly. In Brazil, I enjoy a good caipirinha at the beach occasionally. I like red wine. If I'm going to Italy, I'll probably be drinking some red wine. But if it's a thing that you're doing consistently and you're concerned about, so many people are concerned about other things like, oh, what about the additives in food? Okay, but guess what? We're not sure about the additives in food, like are they damaging? How damaging are they? What specifically do they damage? Alcohol, it's not controversial to say this. It's terrible for you. Why are you why are you concerned about it's kind of like, oh man, what supplements I should take. I'm like, look at your belly. You don't need to supplement. You need to figure out how to lose that belly. And what about your exercise? Like you have to focus on the major needle movers of health. And so many people, especially none of that typically isn't what goes viral on social media. And most of us are spend way too much time on social media. So it's more about like what supplements. And, I remember a guy in his early 60s, this wasn't a client, but he was like, oh, what do you think about the peptides and the NAD IV and all this stuff? And I'm like, man, lose the fat. What's your VO2 max? What's your body fat? He didn't know it. And I'm like, you're focused on the wrong things. I mean, you have to ask yourself, are you just doing this for entertainment purposes? Do you just want to have a good time and talk with your buddies about what your supplement stack is? Okay, no problem. But I'm interested in results, right? I'm interested in results. So if you're focused on results, make sure you're focused on what gets results. And alcohol is one of those things you got to be real careful with. And it raises risks of like 7 different types of cancer. And even at lower amounts, I think we're still trying to figure out like you could probably, because for example, like in Spain, they drink quite a bit, right? But the life expectancy there is several years higher than the United States. So it's just one risk factor, but Americans are so unhealthy to begin with. If you're in that situation, alcohol is just making it worse. So again, I'm not telling you not to drink. We're all adults. like you said earlier, Daniel, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I still drink. I'm never going to stop drinking, like never have a drink again. That may happen one day, but not now. Still enjoying my red wine occasionally. And when I say occasionally, like a couple glasses a month is what I'm talking about.
Right. You
But
you you were
understand it's going to be an issue.
No, you're absolutely right on, and I think, look, I also think longevity, because that's my goal is longevity. I mean, I want to live, like, I don't want to be 100 and sick. I want to be 100 and feel great, and
Yeah.
I want to be 110 and feel great. And I believe that because of AI and because of the technology that's here and the future technology. I mean, imagine I'm 51 years old. I mean, what's the technology going to be like 50 years from now? Holy shit! I mean, this is like everything that you even thought was possible is going to be. I mean, it's science fiction right now, but it's going to be like the Star Trek stuff that we saw, it's going to be available to us in 50 years. And so I'm I'm all about trying to be as healthy as I possibly can while enjoying my life, of course. But I mean, if you just if you could live a better life and enjoy it and live more healthily and also gain some strength, because I think a lot of people underestimate the fact that a lot of people fall down. This is what I think about a lot, right? I'm trying to stay, not that I'm going to be a bodybuilder, super, lifting heavy weight and in the gym 24 hours a day. That's never going to be me. But I want to be strong. I want to be able to be flexible. I want to be able to move. I want to be able to move my body. I want to be able to run. I want to be able to jump. I want to be able to do that kind of stuff. Because the reason why people get sick and die, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't have any strength. So they're 80 years old and they fall and then they get injured and then they for sure can't move now. And then their body just goes to shit. Am I on track here?
Yeah, yeah, you're bringing up a lot of good points. So what we associate with aging is like a loss of function. So you said, oh, I don't want to live to 100 and be sick. By the way, there's something called a Hayflick limit on our cells. And so the human lifespan is believed to be theoretically like 120 or 125 years, but nobody ever gets there because of lifestyle, right? Nobody's lived that long. But to your point, it's not about living that long. It's like, will I have the quality of life? And the breakthroughs are coming, but we don't know when they're right. We're maybe 5 or 10 years away from like the type of pharmaceutical breakthroughs that'll really have a major impact in some of the processes of aging. But in the meantime, you better keep yourself healthy with what we know, which is like what you said, a lot of people suffer from age-related loss of muscle. So if you're not lifting weights, and we'll talk about this because too much muscle, like what a lot of guys, I think, oh yeah, that guy, he's jacked, bro. He's gonna live to 120. No, he's not, right? He's not. There's issues with lifting weights if done to extreme or muscle building done to extreme. And if you add TRT plus, right, or steroids, there's even other issues that could potentially happen because of the negative effects of taking those substances. But to go back to what you said, right? Sarcopenia is the age-related loss of muscle. And after 30, you're losing 3 to 8% of your muscle mass every decade. And if you're not lifting, and we know if you lift, you can even grow muscle, right? So it's something that you can stop, reverse, build more muscle. And so that's why lifting is the foundation, even though, we could talk about cardiovascular fitness being a more important metric because the data, it's really interesting, but like, probably the best metric of longevity that we have is maybe VO2 max, but that's up for grabs. We need both, right? We need both cardiovascular fitness, and we need strength. But to your point, though, right, strength should be the foundation. If you lift weights, you get more bang for your buck. Cardio, we could get into that if you want, but you got to put the time in to build it. Whereas you can get a great workout in 30 minutes. Yeah, you can spend 2 hours or 90 minutes as well, depending on what you're after. But like you get huge returns on even a 15-minute workout where you do a push, pull, and leg exercise done close to failure with, a moderate weight, 6 to 12 reps, something like that. That's the difference between you stopping muscle mass from disappearing or maybe even building it. And one of the issues, the biggest issue that we're facing right now is poor metabolic health, so insulin resistance. And one of the reasons why that is, I mean, there's a nutrition component to it, but people are under muscled because one of the things that muscles do is they pull the blood sugar out of the glucose out of your blood and puts it in the muscle, right? And when you're doing exercise, you take it out of the bloodstream as well. And having circulate high levels of circulating blood sugar is damaging your heart, damaging, a lot of people have heart attacks with low cholesterol. And it's like, well, you have this other thing going on. And we know that our arteries start to stiffen as we get older, starting in our 30s. And a big part of why we're seeing that is because of these glucose regulation issues. So lifting weights helps create more muscle, which is a sink for the glucose, right? Doing the actual lifting will help burn it right out of your bloodstream for energy. And to your point, you can maintain your strength, your muscle, and your ability to move quickly so that you don't have to be one of those people who, you start to fall and you feebly fall on the floor, break your hip, and then it's kind of over for you, right?
Yeah,
So lifting is the foundation.
it's tough, man. You've worked with a lot of celebrities and some pretty high profile people. I had a question. Are these people like super disciplined, or are they regular people, or like I mean, do they have higher mental toughness? I mean, what's the difference when you have worked with some of these high profile people versus other people? Or are they just regular, or are they just normal?
I mean, it depends on the person. The three that you mentioned, I met Richard Branson at his, I guess one of his apartments in Miami Beach, and I've mostly worked with his wife, but I met him, trained him only one time. He's super like I don't know that much about him, didn't hang out with him that much. Obviously, just spent that one 30-minute session with him, but I spent a lot of time with his wife, who's very different, right? So Richard is out there. He attributes his success to exercise, right? I couldn't tell you too much about him, but he made me meet him at like 6:30 in the morning, right? So
So he's
something
pretty
like
he was
that.
pretty disciplined. At least he wanted to
It
get
was
shit
up.
done.
Yeah, he wanted to get shit done for sure. And but I worked with Ricky Martin for the better part of a year, and I worked with Robert Downey Jr. It's so funny because people are like Iron Man. I'm like, well, I worked with him while he was in the process of doing the first Iron Man movie. So he wasn't like Iron Man. He was like, oh, Robert Downey. Oh, that's that guy who wakes up in people's beds like all messed up, right? That's he had come off of that, and I met him. He was totally clean, and he was a really great guy to work with. I met him through a real estate developer, Craig Robbins, who's responsible for a lot of the design district. If you know that area in Miami, he helped build that up. So he was hanging out with Pharrell and Robert Downey Jr. and other connected with other celebrities. I never met Pharrell. They just talked about him, but he asked me one day. He's like, "Hey, Robert, you want to train Robert, or Robert wants to train?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so ended up, yeah. hanging out with Robert, training him. His wife a couple times as well joined in, and yeah, he was a great guy to be around. As far as discipline, though, to answer your question, in Robert's case, yeah, he was getting in shape for a movie, right? And so I think people don't realize that, or me, right? Here's something that I think this is an important lesson. Anyone who makes money or their livelihood is dependent on health and fitness, it's like they have a motivation for it. And if you got paid or were expected to be in shape, I mean, you look great, Daniel. I can tell just, I've never met you in person, but just to see your build, you obviously lift, you exercise, right? But you could be chubby and you would still probably make as much money, right? Like it's dependent on other things. But for me, if I'm out of shape, it's like, oh, let me see who's the top health coach I want to work with. And oh, who's the top health coach I want to come talk about longevity and behavior change at my event. No, that guy's got a belly. Let's not ask him. I mean, he seems knowledgeable, but yeah, I'm never really into his look. So anyone who's financially dependent in one way or another on their right, that they're
Yeah, I
going to
mean,
be more motivated.
Richard Branson is not jacked, but he takes care
No,
of
he's
his
super
body.
fit, but
Yeah, he's fit,
yeah.
but he's not jacked. He's not going to be your personal trainer. And I think that's important. That's an important message, though, because I think that, man, there's a lot of comparisons going on. And I think it makes a lot of people depressed. Depression's not good for your health because that brings stress and all that. But I mean, man, that it's a lot of comparing going on. And let's be honest here, man. I mean, the guy on the GQ magazine that's, completely jacked. I mean, that's all he does all day long. I mean, you're trying to build a business, you're trying to make money, you're trying like that's how he makes his money. So that's his 8 hours a day is he focuses on like building his body. You're probably not going to do that if you're a businessman. So maybe your body's not going to look like that necessarily all the time, but but you can still strive to be more fit and eat less sugar and don't drink so much alcohol and lift weights and do all the things that you're talking about. And I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, you can get better results than you think. A lot of like you if you want to get super fit, you're going to have to put the time in. But let's say you want to improve your metabolic health and you want to look better without your shirt on because summer's coming up, you're going to be taking trips to the beach or whatever. You can lose fat if you're already eating. There's a way, like in my program, what I teach people is I have like a system that I create, a nutrition system where I help people learn how to eat out. And because, man, I love eating out. I was at a Korean barbecue last night. I wasn't, and I ate the ice cream, and my date didn't had like two spoonfuls, and it was a big thing of ice cream. I ate the whole thing, and I have zero regrets. It was amazing. It was like homemade artisanal ice cream, incredible. No regrets. I want to go back again, right? So anyway, I teach people how to do that, but still stay lean because there's a lot of it, a lot of health, a lot of metabolic health is just lose the excess fat, right? And when I say that, we typically look at our body fat levels and we think like, oh, I just want to lose this around right here around the love handle area. That's important, but even more important is the visceral fat, which is the fat around your organs. And so you can lose both by adjusting your nutrition, and you're already eating. So you just need to understand nutrition at a higher level. What most guys do, and this is okay, but oh, I went on keto. Okay, sure, but if you're like my clients and you want to go to Italy, how do you do keto and eat pasta and pizza? Now, if you're really like some people do it, but for me, that's not my thing. So I figured out a system to be able to eat the things that I want. Go to Italy is my favorite place to vacation. And when I'm in Positano, I'm going to be eating the lemon sorbet out of the lemon. Like I'm not going to be skipping out on those things. but so you can have your cake and eat it too, but you need better systems than just like the typical diets that people go on: carnivore, low carb, paleo, all those stuff. Again, if that's working for you, great. That just that'll never work for me. I was strict low carb, or at least I think I was strict for 10 years, and I stopped. Right? I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
I love what you're saying. I mean, it just makes so much sense because you still have to live life. I mean,
Yeah.
life still, you still want to create a great life. And so, yeah, that it just makes so much sense. If you were to, and we're going to kind of wrap it up a little bit here, but in a couple minutes, but if you were able to scream something at men over 40, just to kind of get them to wake up, what's something that you would talk about or you would tell them?
What I would say is take your shirt off, look in the mirror. Are you do is the reflection you see representative of the man that you want to be? And if it isn't, it's going to be something that's going to play in your mind all the time. That's what my clients tell me. And I got out of shape in my mid 30s. We didn't get into that, but I got out of shape in my mid 30s. And I thought it was just kind of done for me, right? I was just going to be, have a belly and, never see my abs again. But is that if you don't get it fixed, it's going to show up in other areas. Yes, you may still make money and your wife still loves you and your kids, are appreciative of you. But you aren't happy. And so if you aren't happy, change. 'Cause it'll change your life. And great news, as long as you weren't like a high level athlete, right? Like Olympic medalists. I got some friends who were like, who played pro football, for example, professional football in the NFL. If you weren't at that level, you can get into the best shape of your life in your 40s. Like you can get into the best shape of your life. You can get lean. You can see your abs. You can develop muscle. You don't need TRT or any of these weird peptides bought off the Chinese gray market, right? You don't need that stuff. You need a solid plan, right? Just like building a business, you can follow. There's all sort like post on social media 10 times a day and post across. Okay, but there's easier ways to do it that are more targeted, more specific, and give you faster results, right? So if you are in that place, just know like there's ways to change and quickly. You can lose fat super fast, right? So our clients lose 10 pounds. If they have it to lose, they lose 10 pounds in the first month of working with me, right? So you can make building muscle if you're not on, if you're natural, right? Which I am. I'm not on any TRT. That takes longer, right? But you can build muscle naturally. You can lose fat quickly. You don't need any of that stuff, any supplements or right. You just need solid systems.
That's badass, man. You're badass. I know that a lot of people, man. I mean, this has been a man. I can't believe we're already an hour in, man. That was pretty badass. Um, a lot of people are thinking, I'd like to get a hold of this guy. I don't know who he is, but he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I think, he's trained some pretty high level people and probably want to be around somebody like that. How do they get a hold of you? And tell us about like anything else that you've done or how we can support you, how we can, just connect with you, man. Because I know a lot of people are going to be asking me, who is that guy? How do I get a hold of him?
Yeah, great. No, thanks so much for having me on the show, Daniel. This is like I love doing interviews like this. You ask some great questions, and if you're interested, I've got a podcast called the Legendary Life Podcast with Ted Ryce. You can find me there. If you feel like, oh, you know what, I just want to hire you, man. Like, I'm tired of trying to figure this stuff out on my own. And if you want to have a conversation about it, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/apply. And you can watch some of the marketing material we have, the masterclass, to get a better idea of what I do. And you can book a call with me. But if you just want to listen to the information, I share a lot on my podcast. So that's wherever you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple, etc. It's Legendary Life Podcast with Ted Ryce.
Can you say that again? Legendary light or life?
Life,
Life. Okay.
life.
All right. So for
Yeah,
some reason, I don't
legendary.
know, I just
Thanks.
wasn't hearing it right, but just want to make sure
Oh,
everybody
good.
gets it right. Legendary life. And yeah, a lot of people, they're going to be reaching out and they're going to tell you, because my audience always does this, but they're going to go out and they're going to send you a DM and they're going to go, man, we saw you on Daniel Alonzo's Wealth on the Beach podcast. And they're going to connect with you, man. And they're going to, buy your courses. They're going to, get connected with you. They're going to support you. And we appreciate you being on. You're definitely got your mind right. I think, to me, what I love most about what you talked about is that you could still live a good life. You could still have fun. You can still enjoy. You can just tell, like, you're a guy that, you're still enjoying life. You're traveling the world, which is my favorite hobby to do. And you're still living, man. And I think that regardless of where we're at in life, I think that we all need to step back and go, all right, man, are we squeezing the juice out of life as much as possible? And because I think more than material things, money has brought me memories and experiences more than anything that it's given me. And I feel grateful and lucky because of that. And so that's why we continue to do what we do. And, but I really appreciate you being on. With that said, everybody, continue to dream bigger than ever, get after it, but most importantly, do it now. God bless you. We will see you at the top.